The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi and welcome to The Spotlight. I'm Jen Spiker, and today I have a recent interview to share with you that was featured on V180's Saturday Simulcast. Mel Fry hosts the V180 Simulcast, heard every Saturday night on Vision. She was a bit starstruck recently when she got to speak to John Cooper. John is the lead singer and co-founder of the Christian rock band Skillet. The band recently toured Australia, and before they hit our shores, Mel caught up with John to reflect on the band's global impact over almost 30 years.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
Firstly, I'm so honoured to be chatting to you. I've followed Skillet since I was so young, and I can't believe that you're still around. You're still producing amazing music. You've come such a long way.
Oh,
seriously,
that's so cool.
There's not many bands that still left from my childhood, so it's really awesome to see you still producing
right.
really good stuff.
That's so cool. I love it. Thank you.
So you've had 11 studio albums, 12 million albums sold worldwide, and a hectic touring schedule. I don't know how you do it. How have you changed and grown since your first album to now?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much change. I mean, one of the things that I didn't know when we first started, I didn't understand that this was a business. I was just like, I'm making art. I want to make songs. I'm not a business guy. And I always kind of even was resistant to the idea, to my own detriment. And so, people sometimes say, if you could go back and tell your younger self some advice, I say, I'd go back to, when I first started a band, and I'd say they called the music business for a reason. You're doing some business. So that has helped me understand that you have to think for the future if you want some longevity, and think about how you're going to just do things a bit more professionally so that you can stick around for a long time and not be so cavalier. And I think that the younger me thought that was like some sort of compromise to my art or something like that, but in reality, it's not. It's just being wise, being prudent, learning how to take care of your voice because you want to sing hopefully for the rest of your life rather than blow your voice out after 10 years, and so what do I need to do to take care of myself in order to do that? And just stuff like that. So that really taught us to come a long way. And once I kind of learned that, then I was eager to do a good job and to try new things and to try new recording techniques and try a new guitar sound rather than the same one over and over. You sort of get into it and then you go, all right, I want to take the next step. What's next,
But how do you keep coming up with different themes and music and inspiration, when you've been doing it that long? How do you just come up with so many new songs? Well,
I mean, I think that's it. I think that if you don't have If you don't have something coming out, I think that things can get very difficult. And I don't know if it's my personality or if it is that all songwriters have this ability, or I don't know what the deal is, or if it's just my personality and my life with God. Maybe that's part of it. I always feel like I have something to say. I'm always like, man, I need to say this. I got something in me. It needs to come out. It's like the feeling of this needs to be said, but because this is important, and I like doing that. So for me, I always feel like I have something to say. Maybe it's fresh. Maybe it's something I've said in the past and I want to say the same thing, but in a different way. I don't know. And, but I always feel that way. And I get inspired. I get inspired by meeting fans, having conversations with people about what they're going through in their lives. Sometimes they'll tell me what the music means to them. And, this song helped me through X, Y, or Z in my life.
Yeah.
I read, I'm a voracious reader. I read all the time. And I get inspired by things I read.
What's your favorite book? What are you reading at the moment?
Well, I read a lot. I read, my favorite fiction book is Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I love that.
I can see the influence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like a monster,
So good.
But I don't read fiction a whole ton anymore. I used to, but now I mainly read theology and philosophy and political philosophy. I'm constantly reading cultural commentary and things like that. I enjoy a lot of that, and I think it's important. And it turns out I've got kind of a brain for it. I did not do very well in school, so I've always thought of myself as being very not academic. But I've always liked philosophy, and I found like, oh, I guess not everybody likes that, and not everybody thrives at that, and I kind of like it because then it gives you an understanding of where ideas come from and where ideologies come from, and then you see what's happening in the world, and you're not so confused. You go, oh, I know why that's happening. Like in America in 2020, we're having, all sorts of riots, and cities were burned down, and people were going, how is this happening? And I was saying, it's really obvious. It's just Marxism. Have you not read about Marxism? And find out that, a lot of people don't like that sort of thing, but I think it helps. And then the most important thing is because you can say, this is where that idea comes from, and let me show you from the Bible why that's wrong. This is what the truth is. This is what will set you free. This is what will bring order and peace to your life. And because the devil tries to confuse everybody, because the devil hates us, and the devil wants us to burn each other to the ground and to hurt other people. And he wants to kill, steal, and destroy, the Bible says. That's true. He hates your guts. And so he wants those ideologies to rise up to be a rival God against Jehovah God. And so when we speak against these ideologies, we combat them with the Word of God. That, to me, that is what it means in the Bible. And it says that vain imaginations and all these things that set themselves up against the knowledge of God, we are to bring those things into subjection under the lordship of Christ. That's what that Bible verse means, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I love that. I found that too when COVID was happening, where like it makes perfect sense. It says in the Bible that this stuff's going to happen, and people have turned against God, and so it's like, of course that's going to happen. Like people's pride is going to get in the way, and it's funny, but as a Christian, it's like, well, we know this. God has told us this.
Right. Yes, and it's always happened. I mean, that this stuff's the earliest of this stuff. I mean, all the way back to the New Testament church. Attacks against the church. We have 70 AD, of course. Jerusalem falls, and the Christians are fleeing because they can kind of see the sign of what's happening, because Jesus warned them about that. And so they're fleeing. And then the persecution of the church starts right away. And why were they persecuting the church? Well, they were persecuting the church because Jesus said that he was the King of Kings. And so that means that Jesus was looked at as a political rival. It's political in maybe a different sense, but if you're Caesar, it's not. Political rival to Caesar, who believed that he was a sort of deity. If you're Caesar or you're the emperor or whatever, then you are a sort of God. So this goes all the way back, and we got to be prepared for it and understand what's happening.
Oh, I could talk to you all day about that. I want to get into your album, Dominion, Day of Destiny. It's out right now. It's been out for a little while. Speaking of, ties in really well, doesn't it? Can you
Good job.
Is that where the message from that came from?
It is, actually, yes. It's exactly right. There's only one King of Kings. There's only one Lord of Lords. And it doesn't mean that we live in some sort of constant rebellion against the state or something like that. That's not at all what I'm saying, of course. What I'm saying is that in reality, there is a king, and we are to honor him. And he tells us how to live. And so Dominion was sort of a proclamation of hope, looking forward to that day when all wars will cease and all famine will cease, and there will be peace, and there will be hope, and looking forward to that day when people don't hate each other and want to hurt each other and all this stuff. But that only happens as every knee bows and every tongue confesses, right? Yeah. So that is kind of what that was about. And other themes on the record, Day of Destiny, Dominion, Day of Destiny. Other themes on the record is like this. There's a lot in your life that you cannot control. You cannot control a pandemic. You cannot control a disease. You cannot control what the government limitations are, or this. You can't control those things, but you can control your own heart, and the reason I'm so passionate about that is I just know people that were suffering from depression. Somebody that I know had a son who committed suicide during the pandemic, during lockdown, was depressed. And there was so much hurt and so much loneliness and drug addiction. And I don't know what it was like in Australia, but in America, the rates of alcohol shot up, like alcohol addiction, and deaths from alcohol. And same, right? I mean, and duh, of course they did. People are depressed and they're sitting alone in their homes drinking. And so some of what the themes of this record was, hey, you can't control a pandemic, but you can make it through this whole, you can make through this with order and peace in your heart. And I really wanted people to get that message because I just feel for people who suffer those kinds of things.
So timely. Psycho in My Head, loving that single. It's out right now. How did this one come about? Tell us the story behind that.
Yeah, well, I mean, is there anybody literally in the world who can't relate to that song after everything we're talking about from 2020? Everybody feels like a little crazy, like what just happened? And I would imagine most people who spend any time on social media are feeling that chaos and that vitriol. People are so upset. People are opinionated. People are angry. And so Psycho in My Head, I would say large scale, is about, we're living in a chaotic time and we're looking for peace. And of course, it doesn't say in the song, but I always allude to this in my songs, that peace is found in a relationship with your creator, right? Relationship with God made possible through the death of Jesus. So it doesn't say that in the song, but that is what it's about. And then if you really want to go deeper into the song, Psycho in My Head is also about this ongoing war, if you will, this battle inside of us that we all experience between the flesh and the spirit. I don't always do what I want to do. And I'm not always the person I want to be. I'm certainly not always the person that God's called me to be. And so it's about that struggle.
On the Spotlight, we've been listening to part of a conversation between V180's Mel Fry and Skillet founder and lead singer John Cooper. The band recently completed a 5-city tour of Australia, with most venues selling out well before the tour began. To hear the entire conversation, including plans for new Skillet music later this year, tap the podcast tab in the free Vision Christian Media app and search for V180. You'll also find plenty of other interviews that have been heard on V180's Saturday Simulcast. My name is Jen Spiker, and I look forward to joining you next time on The Spotlight with another podcast or video worth highlighting.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the free Vision app.